Well, welcome everybody to this next episode of Safety Lifestyle Podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ollie Mathews. Ollie, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Ollie is a functional medicine practitioner and nutritionist and has a lot of experience working with people globally, directors, celebrities and professional athletes. And really the reason I've invited you on the podcast today, Ollie, is because we're going to talk about this big challenge that so many of us have in the aviation industry, and that is shift work and the buildup of fatigue. So Ollie, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about really why you're so passionate about what you do?
Yeah, I'm, as you say, a functional medicine practitioner, and for people that don't necessarily know the difference of what that actually is that if we think about 100% health, disease is actually when you get to 25% health, which is like the Western model of let's fix you once you're essentially broken. We're stopping you get to that 25%, being able to live optimally, to live healthily, to live with energy, be able to sleep and good hormonal balance, gut health and so on.
So let's bring it now to aviation maintenance. Obviously the people who are watching this, most likely are at some point in their life doing shift work.
Yeah.
So it's constantly something that a lot of people battle with. How do I get that right balance? How do I make sure that I'm healthy as an individual? How do I make sure that I'm keeping myself in the right frame of mind, my mindset? How do I keep that healthy? And being there for my family as well. And probably around the sleep thing, how do I get quality sleep, especially if I've got a family and I've just arrived home early hours of the morning and now they're getting up for school when I'm trying to, I'm in the middle of my night, so to speak, of sleep.
Yeah.
That's some of the challenges.
I feel fatigue is essentially when our body isn't functioning at full capacity.
Yeah.
Whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally. And so many things can then impact that. And one of the biggest things is not going to be working to what we call our natural body clock, our circadian rhythm, which essentially is what we're going to have to deal with shift work.
So let's talk about fatigue for a minute then. So how would I recognize if I was becoming fatigued?
I think we had a conversation before this talking about signs of depreciating health, of lowered health, of fatigue is going to be if there's hormone issues, if there's constantly getting sickness, if there's constantly getting migraines. These are what we would class as sickness signs. Someone's not able to lose weight, someone's then got thyroid issues, like the signs where we look at the medical terms. But if you are getting afternoon energy dips, if you are craving foods, if you are not able to function throughout the day, if you're constantly relying on caffeine and coffee to kick you back up, if you are, another big sign of fatigue is not able to sleep. So you can be too tired to then sleep.
That's interesting.
Which again, and is that because of emotional fatigue rather than the physical side of things, the mental fatigue that goes on? There are so many different signs, and I think there's a big factor in health that the body has to regenerate. And if you're constantly on the go, when you look at a lot of cars, all cars basically, you can't just keep your foot on the accelerator all the time. Eventually you're going to run out of road and you have to hit the brake pedal, you have to slow down and stop. Speed limits go up and down. Some roads aren't safe to go at 60 miles an hour. You have to go at 30 miles an hour. So that's where we have to go fast and slow and regenerate. And if we don't have this period of sleep to regenerate, we're not going to be able to recover from fatigue.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think part of that is actually, it's not just ourselves being aware of a buildup of fatigue. Actually, we need to be looking out for our co-workers. And recognizing those similar symptoms in them. Too, and having that relationship with them to say, hey, how are you? Which crosses over into a whole different conversation about your own well-being. But that's important too. So, okay, so we talked about how to recognize it and some of the changes. I think it's important to be aware that it's not just then, I'm assuming you're saying it's not just, I feel tired.
No, if we look to, as we say, those medical terms, if guys have too much fatigue, that can then impact their testosterone levels. And if their testosterone levels are down, their moods are going to be down. Their energy is going to be down. They're going to be much more irritable. Then weight potentially will go up. They won't be as physically strong as such. So they're going to be signs that we see there. Then when we look at women as well, that could be that their testosterone level goes up. When we look at the opposite side of things, and again, sleep is an issue. So then the high levels of stress, we then start getting to see blood glucose management issues, and things like PCOS start happening, other thyroid issues start happening. Perimenopause kicks in earlier for women if they're chronically stressed over a long period of time. And again, with guys, there's a thing called andropause, which is when testosterone is lowering. And the more stressed someone is, the quicker that is going to develop.
Okay.
So if you look at guys after 30, on average, testosterone goes down about 1% every year after 30. Now, if you sleep for 6 hours or less for just 2 weeks, you can lower that by about 10 to 15%.
Wow.
And yeah, you can recover from that, but that's how much it lowers by sleep detriment, in that, or deficiency in that time. And it's worrying because people see 6 hours as a good amount of sleep. And it's kind of hard to then find out how we can function at full capacity with such an important role where lives are on the line if we are fatigued. I don't feel it's possible, so we need to find ways of being able to improve that.
Yeah, that's really good. And of course that will impact how distracted or how prone to distraction we are.
Yep.
I'm assuming if we're doing a critical task, or we need to focus, or we're doing an inspection, and then we're feeling fatigued. I know for me personally, the more tired I get, the more I flip from one thing to another, because I've just got to keep going because I'm sort of agitated. Imagine you're one of these shift workers, probably watching the podcast now, and you've finished your shift in the early hours of the morning. This is a regular thing you do. You have been struggling with fatigue, you've been struggling with eating regularly, that kind of thing. You've got a young family at home. Tell me, just very briefly in summary, what are just the key things you're going to do to make sure that you are living as optimally as possible as a shift worker?
Yeah, I feel first off to recognise there's no perfect.
Yeah.
That doing the best you can is the best you can do. And if we think about, as we said, depending on when your family is awake, you may want to get up a little bit earlier to spend some more time with them. But if you have say there's 3 hours before work when you wake up normally, always have that 3 hours before work. If you're starting 9 a.m, wake up at 6 a.m. If you're starting at 6 p.m, wake up at 3 p.m. Just try and have that time so there's a regular routine, and then always having your meal. I wouldn't look at it as having your breakfast at 8 a.m, having your breakfast 2 hours after you wake, having your lunch 6-7 hours after you wake, and so on. Making sure you're eating enough protein to manage your blood glucose levels, staying hydrated. You're going to get movement in at work, so that should help with getting your steps in and everything. And being aware of the light exposure and caffeine intake towards the end of your shift. I feel they're where I'd really look at. And yeah, just doing your best. That gets that balance between work. Your kids aren't going to be up at 3 a.m. when you get home. So you still want to have time between them. But doing exactly the best you can, and awareness. We said about speaking between people, that if you know someone that seems a bit fatigued, is there something that maybe you can support with it in your team? Is there someone that maybe that they're not even aware they're having that caffeine, having those Monsters, Red Bulls, whatever it is? They're not aware that they're relying on the sugar, but you've seen it. So could you have a conversation with them, say that I've seen you having all these energy drinks and all these band-aids as such for energy dips. What can we do to help support you? And speak out. If you're one of those people that with the low energy, speak out and ask for support.
Yeah, that's really important. And being able to know who to talk to is really important. And a lot of organizations these days have a fatigue management plan. They've got a process, a procedure for that. Whereas if you're really feeling fatigued, you can go and you can raise it and speak to somebody, and then they can put in place a plan to help you recover, which I think is absolutely critical in the safety industry that we work.
Yeah.
So what about what we can eat though? Are there foods that actually help?
It's a case of there's a lot of talk around blood sugar.
Okay.
And people have linked this in the past more with diabetes. But managing your blood sugar or your blood glucose as much as possible is going to help you with energy throughout the day.
Great.
Now, there's a question I always ask clients is that, does food change the way you feel? And what we mean by that is when you eat a meal, do you feel energized? And when you eat a meal, do you feel tired? Now, if you do, that's a sign of poor blood glucose management, and it shouldn't change how we feel. So you shouldn't feel tired and then get energized when you eat. It should just be, I feel hungry, and then you just don't feel hungry. There's a difference in energy. And if that's the case, we need to work on glucose management.
Okay.
Now, if you're someone that, if you're fatigued, you're gonna crave more sugar.
Yeah.
Because that's something which is gonna give you instant energy. Now, if we can manage that with getting good protein throughout the day, consistently throughout the day, protein has been looked at as this muscle building nutrient. So your meats, your eggs, your dairy, there's some protein in nuts and seeds, some of it, like there's more fats in a lot of them, but just looking at those things as protein sources. If you're having like a good handful of protein with every meal throughout the day, maybe a couple of protein snacks, then that should help you be consistent.
Okay.
Not skimping on your fats, but it's not this muscle building nutrient as such, it's a repair nutrient. So if we think about, yes, if you go to the gym and you want to build out muscles, it isn't just you're building muscles, it's you're repairing muscles. And every single thing that happens, if we're fatigued, we get a lot of what we call free radical damage. So oxidative stress, like when our body creates energy, it has to use oxygen, and it has like a waste product as a result of that. And we get what we call oxidative stress. So we have to have proteins, we have to have vitamins and minerals, antioxidants to help repair that. So if we don't have that, we don't have the repairing that we need to do. So it repairs tissues, it repairs our cells. It does so much within the body that we have to have a good protein-based diet. Making sure you're not having loads of processed sugars, processed carbohydrates, as we say, energy drinks. So if we're having to rely on them, but I'm not this massive, like, let's get all sweeteners out. Are they bad? Probably. And I think that's where I would be. And hydration as well. I think hydration is massively overlooked, especially when it comes into summer. If you feel that you're thirsty, then you're already dehydrated. So having drink on hand, good quality water, when you're working throughout your shift is crucial.
Yeah, I know that some people have like an hour journey at the end of a shift, you know, to then get home, and it's like with matchsticks in their eyes, keep them awake, or Red Bull. So I like what you said there about the water. I think that is absolutely overlooked.
I think with coffee as well, caffeine has a half-life. So if you have 100 milligrams of caffeine, it's probably about 200 milligrams in a medium Americano or something.
Yeah.
Maybe 250. But say it's 100 milligrams, 5 to 6 hours later, there's half of that in your system. 5 to 6 hours later, there's 25 milligrams. So if you think about that, if you're having one an hour before bed, like when you're trying to stay up to actually get home, we can just manage energy a little bit more. So you're starting to fatigue during the journey, not fatigued beforehand. So not at a dangerous level of fatigue. And so we don't need the caffeine. Or if you do need the caffeine, just make sure you have a few hours earlier. So it's still in the system, but a little bit lower.
So how does somebody get good quality sleep? So let's imagine I've got a young family at home. I'm finishing in the early hours of the morning by the time I actually get home. I know they're going to be up about 7 o'clock. I need to get good quality sleep because otherwise it's just going to break my flow. I'm not going to feel that I've had quality sleep. What are some practical steps I can take?
I think communication is going to be a crucial thing. And with young kids, you're never going to get 100% silence, and you might say something and then 5 minutes later they're forgotten as such. But it's very much getting the right communication is key, so they know why you need to sleep. But there's things that you can then do if we can get them to actually make it conducive, the environment conducive to sleep, is that if we have an eye mask and earplugs to help us to not then need to hear the sounds or to see the light. There's an eye mask that I'm not affiliated with the company or anything, called Mantra Eye Mask, and they have little like cushions around, because I hate like when they touch your eyes. So they've got little cushions here, and you can make them wider. And they do some actual noise cancelling ones where they have plugs in their ears. They do some different sorts of them, and like they do a pro one which is like £90, but it's lasted me like 3.5 years so far. So if you think about that per night, it's nothing. So it's worth the investment, so you actually have that blackness in there. And I use it normally like when I actually sleep anyway, just so the bright lights aren't, if there's lights out the window, you haven't got a blackout blind, those sorts of things. And again, like I use mouth taping, so I tape my mouth just to help me breathe through my nose, because then we get more oxygenated and it helps us breathe better. There's more filtration. It's going to help us get into a deeper sleep. If you're someone that snores, if you're someone that wakes up with a dry mouth, more dehydration, that's not going to get good quality sleep. And we end up blocking our airways and everything. So that's a big thing that would help. And again, like the nose strips, they help as well, just open up the airways.
Well, thanks, Ollie. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
You can go to OJ Health, so ojayhealth.com, or on Instagram is @Ollie Mathews Health.
Excellent. Perfect. So yeah, anybody who wants to get in touch with Ollie, please do. And I know that Ollie would be more than happy to have a chat and see how he can help further. But yeah, that's it. Great. Thanks, Ollie. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you. See you next time.